Is there a big UFO scandal coming? Is there going to be a big wave of news with UFO community? Are people scared because things are coming? Well, that's what The Hill's reporting. Where they been? Haven't seen a lot of reports from The Hill. So have you guys been covering or following the topic since 2023 when the David Grush started happening? Now, The Hill, I believe, is a sister station to News Nation. They were covering UFO news like every day, both The Hill and News Nation, like every day. And then that stopped. And then they kind of just delegated it. And now, like, Ross Coldhart is really the only one on News Nation that still pays the subject a lot of attention. I guess Chris Cuomo does it sometimes too. But for the most part, it was, I mean, like I'm telling you, it was every day this news was coming. And every day from both The Hill and News Nation, their views were up. But then they stopped doing it and trying to do regular news. And then it was like, and now we have other networks for that. Stick to that. And then they are not doing it for some reason. But The Hill did report on something. And they're saying that there's a monumental UFO scandal that is happening. So this is a long piece. I'm going to play this. And props to the UAP Reporting Center for clipping this out. It's like a 4.5 minute piece. So I'm going to play it. And then I will talk about it. Let's get into it. Here you go.
As lawmakers' investigations into unidentified flying objects looms overhead, many might be asking, what does this all mean? Hill opinion contributor Merrick von Rennenkamp, who also served as an analyst with the United States Department of State's Bureau of International Security, makes the case that the UAP saga could lead to two conclusions. Either the United States government has mounted an extraordinary decades-long cover-up of UFO retrieval and reverse engineering activities, or elements of the defense and the intelligence establishment are engaging in a staggeringly brazen psychological disinformation campaign. He writes this in The Hill. Merrick von Rennenkamp joins us now to discuss. Welcome to our show.
Thanks so much for having me back, guys.
So, yes, we've been talking about UAPs a lot lately, ever since the David Grush interview. You know, why don't you tell us more about the potential for what you described as a psychological, disinformation campaign? What does that approach, if that's what's going on, look like? And does that even have to do with what we're talking about now? Are we talking about this because of actions the government or the people trying to either publicize this or bury it are taking?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Robbie. And from my perspective, and I'll just zoom out a little bit and take maybe a 30,000-foot view. There's certain facts in this story that I think we can all agree on. And from my perspective, those facts lead to either two extraordinary conclusions. And again, one is that there's this decades-long UFO retrieval and reverse engineering effort, or two, that there is a disinformation campaign. That's just the way I see the facts as they stand leading, those two kind of paths. And as far as the disinformation campaign, I don't know what the motivation would be. Maybe it's to fool our adversaries into thinking that we have some remarkable technology in our possession. I don't know to what end. I suspect that would be, I'm not a lawyer, but I suspect a massive disinformation campaign along those lines would be illegal. That's intentionally targeting potentially U.S. citizens. And so there are reasons to be skeptical of that. But those are the two options that I'm coming up with. And I'd love to hear alternative takes and different theories. But that's the conclusions that I am coming up with based on the facts as I understand them.
Well, I think the argument for a disinformation campaign is that, one, it could be an effort to distract from other kinds of news stories that are less advantageous to either or both establishment parties. I don't think that the deep state, I think people would argue, is particularly concerned with whether or not the actions they take are legal. There, of course, have been efforts to promote certain kinds of art and culture in the past. For example, in the mid part of the last century, representational art was disfavored as an effort by the CIA in favor of abstract art, because representational art was seen to be kind of Soviet and advancing people's movements and valorizing the proletariat, as opposed to abstract art, which had fewer narratives. So that certainly is not a thing. That kind of social public manipulation is not beyond the reach or the historical choices of the U.S. government. But I guess on the other side, people don't want to prematurely discount what could be an incredible revelation if it is substantive and real. So what is the best evidence in your mind that the timing and quality of the revelations that have come out of late are not connected to a misinformation campaign from the government, but are coming out now because of other kinds of reasons that are more credible?
So a great lead up and great question, Brianna. I think from my perspective, I've followed this very closely. It's obviously a fun topic to look into. And from my perspective, this all started in 2007 when Senator Harry Reid, started up a fairly secretive UFO analysis program. And that is the genesis. That story is culminating with what we're seeing today. So I'm not sure this is this is happening now for a particular reason. And I want to kind of maybe get into the nuts and bolts of, if we're thinking this is a disinformation camp, the nuts and bolts of this are that we understand, and Grush said this under oath, that he had individuals who claimed firsthand knowledge of these UFO retrieval programs provide protected disclosure, that's a legal term, to the intelligence community inspector general. If you willingly and knowfully lie to the inspector general, that is a $10,000 fine and or 5 years in prison.
All right, so if you've been following my journey, I've been really hitting the gym for the last year or so and making sure, as I get older, that I'm doing things right. And I was feeling the change as I was getting older, and everything that was easy beforehand, it just wasn't anymore. I don't really talk about it a lot, but I guess I should talk about it now. I think it started to really hit me about 5 years ago. And now, even as I was starting to work out, I could feel it. No matter if I was eating well or whatever, I felt like sometimes I was just kind of, slugging along. And nobody really tells you about it as you get older. One day you're crushing it. Next day you're wondering why everything feels twice as hard. And I think some people your testosterone, it lowers as you get older. Here's the thing. Most men start losing testosterone around age 30, about 1% every year after that. So when the new year hit this year, I was like, wait a minute. I got to feel energized again. I don't want to feel worn down. I got this pilot coming up. I want to really hit these things hard. So I keep it simple, and I'm doing something natural that supports my body where I need it. And that was why I was excited to hear about Mars Men. What is it? It helps your body unlock usable testosterone so you can feel like yourself again. Because what I learned about it was that your body makes testosterone, but a lot of it gets locked up and it can't be used. And there's a protein called SHBG. It basically handcuffs your testosterone. Even if your body's making it, SHBG locks it up. You can't access it. It's like having money in the bank, but your debit card is not working. So Mars Men is designed to help free lock testosterone so your body can actually use it. There's no synthetics. There's no needles, just real ingredients that help optimize energy, focus, and strength. What's great about it is there's now stronger physical performance, fast recovery from the gym, more consistent, natural energy. It's not like drinking a cup of coffee. It's a steadier sense of drive throughout the day. Supports healthy T levels, energy, stamina. 8 natural clinically dosed ingredients, made in the USA, and it's third-party tested. There's a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk with that. So the worst case is you don't like it, and you get your money back. But over 91% of users report higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results. Just check out the reviews on the website and go check it out yourself. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping, 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. Perfect way to kick off the new year strong. That's mengotomars.com. You get 50% off and 3 free gifts at the checkout. So you're going to purchase, and then they're going to say, hey, where'd you hear about us? You got to support our show, and you got to tell them that we sent you. Go check it out. Mars Men. So again, it's good to see other people reporting on it, to see, and the fact that they very well might have been doing more stuff, but this is the first thing that I've seen that has popped up recently. And the idea, look, 2 ideas that have been covered extensively, right? And the first, what they talked about, that it was misinformation, that there are these things out there that actively putting out there to distract from other things, away from maybe certain kind of technology or other things. I don't buy into that. I understand the theory, but the collected effort from various different people, and even when you look at stuff from, we've been talking about it a lot in this channel recently, the Vargine case. And you look at this, a certain amount of people that have covered this, talked about this, have been witnesses to this, that they're all in cahoots, all of them, and that the misinformation, that they've been given bad information and firsthand witnesses and things. Now, that being said, I'm not going to tell you that there aren't people that are involved in this space that I don't think are part of a misinformation campaign. I just think the whole collective effort being a misinformation campaign is a little far-fetched, in my humble opinion. Now, the second part of it seems more realistic, that there has been this potential cover-up for how many years, because I was going over this recently, and this is something that's been, if you're following this topic, it's not me coming up with this. This is just kind of a known thing, is that in 1947, when that crash happened, the news that day initially was covered, the crash itself was covered in the same way that a plane crash that happened in a residential neighborhood would be covered today, except this is a thing that happened. This flying saucer crashed. Holy crap, what's going on? And then after a conversation of like, hey, wait a minute, this really shouldn't be out there. This should be something we need to study. This is something that we don't want the public to know about. Tell them those balloons. At least that's, in my opinion, from the stuff that I saw. There are a lot of people who say, no, stupid. It was a balloon. It was a weather balloon, and people thought that was what it was at first back in the 1940s. And but with all the follow-up coverage on Roswell and everything else too, and when you listen to the people in archived footage who were there on the ground and what they saw and what they were told to say and things, it's again too coincidental to be so covered up by these particular people. For what reason to do that, or not cover up? Sorry, to make it up. Like, why? Why did this one guy, this like farmer or whatever he was, or he was, I can't forget who this older guy from, I think it was from the Phenomenon documentary that James Fox did. And they talked to this guy who, or they showed footage of this guy who saw the thing crash and saw what it was. And again, then they told us that it was a balloon. Like, no, it wasn't. But that's what you're telling people. Okay. So the cover-up aspect just seems a lot more realistic. And the conversation that I've had many times over that I have found baffling, my friend DJ, who says this all the time, he's like, I just don't believe that the government would be competent enough to cover this up for that many years. But that's the whole thing. He said, it's not, are there certain aspects of the government that are holding? Yeah, but it's not the collected government. Clearly, when you look at the people who are trying to fight for this thing and trying to get answers for it, I think the government has knowledge of it. They ain't running it. It's the private sector companies. And that's why I do believe the notion of the reverse engineering stuff. And I believe when I hear the stuff that Lukatsky said about breaching the hull and the stuff that Stratton talks about and all that stuff, I buy it. I buy into it. It seems with the amount of people that have these reports and the things that have been discovered, whether it's an Age of Disclosure or other documentaries similar to it, the idea that there has been this program and it has been covered up. Now, whether or not there's going to be an actual scandal, a UFO scandal that is going to be happening. Now, maybe it's because it's like this trickle effect, right? The fact that since 2023, they've tried to put the genie back in the bottle and they can't do it. And the idea of social media has become so overwhelming because one of these things, you look at 1947, you look at these things, they say, hey, you know that report you heard on the radio? Not true. Okay, I'm going to go about my day and go buy some milk at the store. And you don't think about it, or you just say, oh, you read that thing on the newspaper? Yeah, I read it. No, and then it's gone. You didn't have Twitter every day. You didn't have idiots like me doing videos. You didn't have people, talking about this stuff on the Hill. You didn't have consistent government trying to find answers to it. It keeps on coming up. Now, as I talked to Megan Medic last week, and I agree with her, I think that not only in certain parts of the government, which what she said that it's still taboo. I think it's very clear that in the news organizations, it's taboo. I mean, you look at both News Nation and The Hill. They were covering it for a bit. Maybe people were looking at it and going, oh, they're the UFO channel. They're World Weekly News now. Oh, and they want to be, revered a little bit more. I think that they're on the wrong side of history if that's the case. Again, that's me saying maybe that's the case, but then they combat me today by posting this and having this interview. So maybe they're starting to cover it more. Maybe because of this type of interview, they go, maybe something is coming. Maybe we will be the ones that are talking about this stuff. And we were the ones who were breaking it. We were the organization that talked to David Grush, and because of it, we were able to, the next thing at this hearing. So maybe there are, you look at something like, you bring up News Nation, because The Hill, again, I think is a sister station. News Nation covered the James Fox press conference. They were the only ones that did. So maybe they got some good coverage on that. Maybe they got some good views on it. Maybe they're starting to do more of it. I don't know. But as far as an incoming scandal, I mean, we've been thinking about an incoming scandal, an incoming, all hell is going to break loose for a little bit now. It does seem like every once in a while something hits. But as we are, as I said, kind of a sheep mentality society, until major networks or other things or even people deciding to share things virally on social media, it won't catch on until that happens, where you can have certain things that go viral for the stupidest reasons. UFO scandals, a press conference about a doctor and an alien body, next to an alien body, doesn't catch on anymore. And as I did the video yesterday, as I said, I think 99% of the people said that the video, and I'm on the 99%, that video of the footage itself is probably AI or fabricated. There's no clear-cut evidence, video footage, any of that stuff yet to say. This is what's happening. Now, if that's part of the scandal, if there's somebody who was working on these programs, the reverse engineering programs, and has documented video of it, has this stuff, and that gets out, and that stuff actually hits the public, then that scandal will be huge, because what he said is right. When the amount of lies that have been told, if it is indeed a lie, so much criminal stuff. It's one of the things that we've been talking about, that I remember hearing about when Grush and Rogan were talking about. The amount of lawsuits and other things that could come out of it, the amount of jail time that could come out of it if disclosure happened, is probably a major reason for people to say, let's not do this, or a threat to say you can't do this because this will happen. So a major scandal coming. I mean, I feel like I have this conversation every 2 or 3 months. Oh, is something coming? Something big coming? I don't know. I'm not sure. If a press conference about, a doctor with high credentials says he in 1986 was in a room with a creature and nobody's talking about it, I mean, that's like, that doesn't give me hope. And like I said, I'm not telling you, and I say this every single time, I know, but I'm not telling you that people have to go, oh, doctor says he was next to an alien body. Well, then there's aliens. Nope. Saying that it should be a story. It should be a story. Anyway, as far as this thing happening, as far as a scandal happening, as far as more UFO news, maybe it's combined with what Burleson was talking about getting the UAPDA finally passed, about getting more whistleblower protection. If that stuff happens, I'll start to look I'll look upward. Right now, just going to ask the same questions. What do you think? Possible? Not possible? No scandal coming? Is this guy hearing stuff from the inside? Do you think it is a bunch of misinformation? What say you? Put your thoughts in there. Let me know. I appreciate it. As always, make sure you comment, click like, subscribe. Thank you for being here. See you on the flip side.